This is Inside Outlands. I am your host, Nat Ryle, and joining me today is Jack Scallywag, captain of the Lusty Wench. How's it going, man?
It's going good, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I had a couple requests. I had one person send me your forum thread, and then it wasn't 5 minutes later, someone totally unrelated sent me the same thing, and both of them were like, "You gotta get this guy on and interview him." If no one's seen that forum thread, I'll link it. It's pretty good stuff. It's kind of like your role playing adventures. Well, I guess your PvP adventures in the sea.
Yeah, it's sort of an ongoing thread we're going to keep adding to with various sea adventures. It is a little bit RP. It's a little bit more tongue in cheek than maybe some of your past guests have been, like Sir and whatnot. But we like to have fun with it.
Yeah, so let's give us a brief rundown who you are, what you're doing in Outlands, why I brought you on here, I guess, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing UO for a long time, and I kind of been following Outlands a lot when it was sort of in development, and was playing on UO forever before this, and have been did a lot of seafaring on the different servers and whatnot, and kind of saw the system over here, and it just looked really cool. And so a group of us kind of splintered off of our UO Forever guild and came over here and kind of set out to sort of dominate the sea combat. And that's sort of kind of what we've been doing, frankly.
Yeah, did you ever play the 2.0 or the 1.0 version of this? I know it's kind of been his baby on other servers too. And he brought it here and tweaked it.
I didn't know. I don't know if it was Angel Island or what other servers they had it on, but no, I haven't played anything quite like this system. There's UO Forever has sort of a similar as far as controls and sort of the mechanics, but this is way more fleshed out and a lot more fun in my opinion. But yeah, we're really liking it a lot.
I mean, we're going to get into it, but I'll just give my brief history with this. So I hopped on beta, and in beta you could make whatever build you wanted, and I figured it was a good opportunity to go check out the sea stuff, just to see what it was like before the game came out. And I'm glad I did. It's really expensive to get in, and I was extremely overwhelmed. And before I checked it on beta, I was thinking like building characters around it, making that my main focus, really diving into boat content. And maybe that was a mistake that I didn't do it, but in beta I was quickly turned off because it was just too much. There was so much going on. Your cannons, moving your ship, moving your boat.
Yeah, I mean, even I've done sea combat on a lot of different servers, and frankly, even here it was a little overwhelming for me too. There's a forum post I think Lusty put together that explains it, but even then it was like, oh man, there's a lot going on. There's a gump with crew, and there's upgrades, and there is sort of a lot going on. It's a little daunting at first, and it is it's a little hard to get into at first because it's expensive and quite unforgiving. Whereas when you lose your ship on the server, it's gone for good, and that's it. You're not getting it back, which is a little bit different than how it is on most other servers.
So I know you can get your ship stolen in other servers. You kind of can here. There's some mechanics to go against that too here. But is it when your ship is blown up on other servers, does it pop back at a dock somewhere?
Yeah, like on UO Forever, if your ship gets sunk, it just pops back in your bank. Essentially, you'll lose everything that's on it, and you can kind of upgrade ships on there too. But generally, it'll pop back into your bank. Other servers, it's kind of been you lost them for good too. But they usually weren't quite as expensive to buy a ship as they are here. Like a galleon is 4 master crafts and a whole shit ton of resources, so it's sort of a big investment. And there's a lot of hotkeys you need to have. There's sort of a lot of things you got to figure out, and there's kind of a lot on the line, which is kind of what UO is all about, open PvP and that kind of thing. But
there is a lot on the line. I wonder if Luthien and Owen intended master crafting diagrams to be as rare as they actually are. Obviously, they wanted them rare because they're tied into some big items you have to get. But do they want them to be this rare? Because even the newbie boat with one mastercraft diagram that's kind of a lot to go out there and you walk. I always call it when I walk out the door and I get killed in PvP. Here's what it cost me, and on the land it's not that much, and depending on the build, it can vary. But you walk out the door in a boat, I mean that's just the Mastercraft diagram alone, and plus a little bit of math, that's a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, what are they selling for 35K or something? So it's not crazy, but frankly, I think they should maybe make the smallest ships a small boat, which is one Mastercraft. Maybe make that only cost, just resources, wood and iron or whatever. Because I think a small is one Mastercraft, a medium is two, a large is, it kind of goes up. It makes sense to have one that's maybe allow people to get out there a little bit more, even just to sail around or fish. Or a lot of people just do fishing and stuff, and I think it would help get people out there a little bit more if it wasn't quite so expensive to jump in.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you like it this risky? Would you have as much fun with it if it wasn't?
Well, we kind of like it now, but we're sort of top dog up here, so it's sort of, I've called it the golden age of pirating because we've gone out and you'll see it in some of those threads, or maybe if you follow the Discord a little bit, but we'll go out and capture people's ships. In other words, we kill them and then board their ship and sort of take it over and then send them a Discord message and say, hey, you want this ship back? It's going to cost X amount of gold. So it's kind of been fun for us in that aspect, but I am sympathetic to some of these players that have spent a lot of time putting it together and out there farming for upgrades and all the rest of it. And then they could potentially lose everything. Although we have been pretty forgiving and kind of RP with people. And if most of the people even that we've either sunk or captured their ships we're actually sort of friendly with now and have sort of negotiated protections, services for and whatnot. So yeah, it is. There definitely needs to be, just like everything else in UO, and there needs to be risk to it. If you make it too trammel, then it sort of loses its meaning, a little bit. So you got to kind of have, it's a fine balance, of how much is too much to lose,
Yeah. So we have a lot to break down here, I think. Have you ever played EVE Online?
Yeah, a little bit, not a ton. I mean, I've probably, a couple of weeks of it, maybe a total time played.
Yeah, I've got years in EVE Online. So I lived in LowSec a bunch of my career in EVE Online, doing pirating, doing the anti-piracy, just living in LowSec, doing indie stuff. And one thing they like to do is they'll capture your pod. So they'll kill your ship and then they'll trap your pod, and then they'll have you get on their comms and to negotiate the fees for like not blowing you up, I guess. And we were out in a room one time, and they got us, brought over one of my court mates and made him sing a song. So I imagine in UO you like hold their ship. It's worth a lot. It's worth a lot more money here, a lot more time than just a pod and EVE, and you get make them sing a song, order them pizza.
Yeah, we haven't had anybody jump in Discord, but I like that kind of stuff. I think that's really funny. And a lot of the people even that have paid up have sort of played along and had a good humor about it, and have this is kind of a funny thing, and they've sort of like, oh shit, you got me, but good work, I'll pay up now. So a couple people not so much friendly, but yeah, that kind of stuff is really cool to me. That's that kind of player interaction that makes MMOs fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're out there, you're kind of top dog. You're out there, you can kill anything you want. But if you actually do that, you're gonna thin the water so much you have nothing left to go kill. So I would think it's in your best interest to be a little RP-ish with it, and take the boat over, but then do your deals. They pay for protection or cut deals to not blow their shit up.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we don't want to force anyone off the server, and we could have definitely essentially boxed everyone out of the sea combat content if we wanted to, if that we had a mind to. But instead, we've sort of, everybody that we've sunk or ransomed, basically, like we've said, okay, you pay your ransom, and now you have protection from our guild now on. So, basically, most of the people that are doing seafaring often have already ran into us, and basically they're under our sort of wing of protection currently. So in a way we've ran out of targets in that way too, because we've already sort of hit them once or twice already, but we didn't really want to keep, it's sort of like wouldn't be very fun if you just keep hitting the same person over and over again, because it's just, if we sink one guy's ship and he makes another one sink it again, I totally understand that they would just give up and go farm in the dungeon,
So the other thing I want to break down, that first thing you said was lowering the barrier of entry. So it's probably a good middle ground, is keeping the expense and cost and danger but lower the barrier of entry. So maybe not have that first ship being MCD or I don't know, something that we can get in and check out the content.
Yeah, absolutely. Although at some point, like it's, there's, for people who don't know, there's all these NPC ships out in the water that you can fight and sink. With just a small ship, it's going to be pretty tough. I mean, you can do it, but it would take a long time, and you don't do a lot of damage with a small ship. So, but it can get people into it a little bit. There's, people have been talking about doing, the staff is aware of this, and they've sort of said they're going to make some changes to still have some meaning to getting sunk, or there's still some penalty there, but maybe a little more forgiving, maybe some kind of system where your boat can be salvaged, but you lose, some of your upgrades or something along those lines, which, again, it comes to that line of how much trammel do you want. I mean, at some point, you don't want it to be total, just there's no consequences whatsoever, but at the same time, you want people to be out here and enjoying the content. So there's a balance there.
Yeah, I mean, they made this system for people to enjoy, and if they don't think enough people are engaging with it, they'll want to make changes to get that engagement. I don't know. I'm not out there. You are. So how popular do you think the seafaring content in Outlands is?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you can go in the server rankings and see how many people are on that list, and there's a lot of people on that list. So I think a lot of people have at least checked it out. As far as, regular seafarers, it's definitely low compared to the rest of the server. But that's typical even on other servers, too. I mean, a lot of people there's a lot of veteran UO players that never were on a boat, ever. Or like maybe just did it for the 7x7 bonus back in the day. Like not a lot of people have done it. So it's definitely a smaller community. But that's kind of cool in a way too. I mean, there's sort of like everybody sort of knows each other in the ship channel and Discord, a little bit. So it's definitely smaller than the rest of the server. But I think people are starting to get into it. I think in a way, even though we've sort of been out here being the pirate role, we've also, I think that's sort of a lot of people have seen that stuff, hopefully seen that forum post and sort of been like, oh, this is so fucking cool. I want to get out here and pirate things and shoot cannons and do all the rest, because it is a lot of fun. Even just PVMing is pretty interesting here, just like what we were doing right before we jumped on this on the podcast here.
Yeah, I had Jack take me out to kind of show me some of the boat content, because I really hadn't seen much of it, not in a couple months. So definitely eye opening. It's cool stuff. It even today, after playing UO for 5 months straight, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot going on, man.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I was thinking about, is that most UO players probably play, like I played UO like literally day one when it launched. And so it's always kind of interesting to me to hear people who've, like, I think you said on a previous podcast, this was the first, you never played UO until UO Outlands, right?
I had a little brief run with Relpor, like 2 or 3 weeks. Pretty much just macroed a guy up and then quit. And I did 2 months on official, but even that was macroing a guy up, taking him out a little bit. And so they're both really brief, and real Outlands is kind of my first actual go at it.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to get people, other gaming friends, that that try to get into UO that didn't play back in the day, and it's sort of like they sort of look at it and be like, "Well, this looks a little odd, a little old school, but okay." And then it is pretty. I mean, there's quite a learning curve to playing UO, at least playing it at a higher level for sure. So it's definitely a high barrier of entry. So it's always interesting to me to see like new players coming in this late in the game.
Oh, I'm awful at it. My guild yells at me all the time. Why'd you heal this guy? Hey, Nat, attack somebody, dude. You're just sitting there. Or whatever else I'm fucking up at the moment.
Well, a lot of it is I mean, hotkeys are so important, and having all that. Like, I've been using the same general hotkey setup for like whatever 20 years now. So like this shit is just muscle memory to me. But there's a lot of things you got to to have memorize, and your heal hotkey, your last target. You're doing all this different stuff. So there's a lot to learn there, and to be efficient and play the game that way.
Well, and you're going to need a lot of extra hotkeys doing the boat content. Are you using your keyboard at all to drive the boat?
Yeah, absolutely. You should as much things as you can in this game. You should hotkey. Your mouse you should use as little as possible, other than moving around and moving loot and stuff. But yeah, everything on the if you get into sea combat, you can just anticipate you need to add another 20 to 25 hotkeys minimum to your setup currently. That's moving the boat, boarding ropes, reloading the cannons, everything. There's tons of stuff that you will have to add into your repertoire of hotkeys. I use my numpad on the right side of my keyboard to sort of, 8 is forward, 2 is back, for instance. So it's sort of, that makes sense to me. But there's definitely a lot of hotkeys that you got to add to your list there.
Yeah, so in your PvPing too, how are you fitting all that on there with just a regular PvP setup too?
You can, but it's a little bit different here where the damage is mitigated between boats. So if you shoot an E-bolt, if we were both on boats and we were fighting each other and I shoot an E-bolt at you, it's going to do like 5 damage. Or if I shoot an arrow at you, it's going to do a really low amount of damage. So what they've done is they've mitigated the damage between those like spell casting and archery between boats so that the actual canning fire is more important. Because on a lot of servers, what you can do is that you can just stack, a bunch of mages onto a small ship and go around and just sink people, essentially. So I love the way they've done it is that they've made that basically impossible so that you actually have to be good at sailing, firing your cannons, managing your crew and all that stuff while you're fighting people, because you can't cast fields, you can't cast EVs onto other boats. You can do that on a lot of other servers. They've set it in a way that it really is important that you are actually fighting with your ship. Your ship is more important on this server, which is really cool.
So what about, you said you can't cast fields, but you can do range. Are there range builds you take out, or do you kind of usually build your characters to board and fight on the ship?
Generally, yeah, a lot of people you'll see are asking a lot about the builds, and I tell a lot of people that it's more about controlling the ship, because it's most of your damage is going to be cannons. All of our PvP encounters, we're mostly killing them with the cannons before we ever board and do anything else. So it's almost like you could do that with essentially any character. I recommend having healing and tracking and a few other key skills, but as long as you can sail and control your boat, you can do it that way. Now, once you board an enemy ship, damage returns to normal. So if you're standing on the same boat and I E-bolt you, it's going to do 30 damage or whatever the normal E-bolt damage is. But it's much more geared towards controlling your boat, shooting cannons, and doing that kind of stuff, rather than just... Because a lot of servers, you could just have, stack a bunch of mages, like I was saying, or have a tamer and just have your tamer just does all the damage and nothing else matters. But here, you definitely have to control the boat and shoot and do that.
All right, so let's say I want to get started. You've convinced me. I want to check out the boat content. I may be a little established. I have some gold piled up a little bit. I don't think you would tell a new player to do this right away, not with the barrier of entry. But let's say you've got your Dexter, 100K in the bank. What do you do to get on this thing? What things do you bring out? What ship do you buy? What do you do?
I'd probably start with a large rather than using a small or medium. With a large, you have 4 cannons and 4 crew members, and you can pretty much. When we were first starting, we all made larges, and you can, like the toughest NPC ship you're going to see out there is an Orc Reaver Galleon, and you can easily handle that with a large, no problem. So I recommend getting a large. It's only one more mastercraft, and than a small, and the resources, it's like a couple thousand more wood, so that's meaningless. So I would start with a large. You can buy crew super cheap, or there's plenty of player vendors that sell crew, and just get started that way. And right off the bat, set your hotkeys. There's a gump when you have the ship options up, where you can click little arrows to move your boat around. But I promise you, if you do that, you are going to lose your ship. Not just the players, but NPCs are just going to kill you. You really need to set those hotkeys right off the bat. So I'd recommend start with a large, get a couple crew members, and then start figuring out your hotkeys that you could sail around, shoot, and reload, and a couple other critical ones. And then just go out and start shooting NPC ships, and you got to just sort of figure it out a little bit. But it's not that hard to get into it. I think it's pretty easy, and you can figure it out fairly quick.
So what? I know there's ropes. What other material needs? Spyglass. What are the weird things you might need rather than just putting your character in the boat?
You need repair kits is a big one for repairing your boat, and those are made by tinkers, and you can also buy them from shipwrights. So repair kits, obviously cannonballs, which you can also buy from shipwrights. Basically everything you can buy from a shipwright But if you have a tinker, that makes it that much easier. But cannonballs, repair kits, ropes for when you're boarding, and spyglass. Well, spyglass is something you hit. It pops up a gump, and you can search for ships, and it'll show you, depending on the level of your spyglass, will show you any ship within, say, 70 spaces or whatever. And that's one way to kind of go around and find enemy ships to shoot.
Okay, so I've got my large boat, I've got my equipment, and then like what should I go kill first to kind of warm up to this?
Yeah, well, make sure you have crew too, the NPC crew, man. I mean, and so with the large, you can have 4 crew members. And like I said, a lot of people, they're so easy to get that people are selling them on vendors and whatnot. They're easy to get. If anybody's getting to this, just PM me. I'll give you some crew members. It's really no problem. But I would start off, if you sail around, there's different kinds of NPC ships. There's like fishermen. I would start killing fishermen because the fishermen boats you'll see have no cannons. So you can just sit there, sail right next to them, sit there, and then blast them with cannons. Their crew will shoot stuff at you and whatnot, but your own crew can tank that damage. And I would start there to kind of figure it out a little bit. And then once you do that, you could start fighting the other types of ships and they'll all fire back. But, keep moving. I would never stop moving is one thing I tell people, is because the enemies will shoot cannons at you, but if you're moving around enough, they're not going to do a ton of damage to you. If you just sit there and tank cannon damage, you're going to die pretty fast.
Yeah, I guess that was my next question, was what are some tips to actually survive the encounters?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend, strafing around a ship. You can always, the ships don't move. If we're talking about PVM, the enemy ships don't really move. They move a little bit, but not a ton. So you can kind of sail in, shoot cannons at them, sail out if you need to. There's a cooldown on your cannons depending on the ship size. It's like, 15 seconds or whatever. So you can kind of sail in and out, shoot cannons. Once you get all ships have 3 health bars. They have a hull health bar, a sail health bar, and a guns health bar. So once you get either guns or sails low enough, you can board with the boarding rope. So generally the strategy, it's kind of a 2-phase thing. You sort of have your cannon phase, which you're sailing around shooting cannons. Once you get their guns or sails low enough, you can use your boarding rope to board the enemy ship, which will bring also all your own crew members with you. And then you essentially, at that point, you're meleeing, find the rest of the crew members on the enemy ship. And then once they're dead, you can loot them, loot their hold, which can have upgrades and all kinds of other good loot. And then that's pretty much it.
Where do you want to position your ship? Because you have more cannons on one side. No, you have the same cannons on both sides, right? Usually it's only like 2-2, 4-4, 8-8, something like that. But yeah. Can you fire directly in front of you?
You can't fire in front of you. You can. There's sort of, I don't know. There's some angle there that it cuts off at, but generally they sort of need to be to your side. So the NPC ships, like I say, they don't move a ton. So you can kind of, what I do, I have a big ship with a lot of crew that are pretty high level. So I sort of just circle around them essentially and just keep blasting them. And my crew are tanky enough to sort of accept that. But otherwise, you can sort of come in, strafe in, shoot them, sail back out, and do that over and over again. But they kind of need to be to your side. The cannon command is like bracket fire cannon or something. It's under options. And it'll automatically choose the cannon side for you. So you can load 10, essentially, volleys onto each side. So you can shoot 10 on each side. But it'll automatically, if you're facing, in other words, if the enemy's to your left, it's going to know to automatically shoot your left cannons.
And then, so you're kind of getting behind them, you're shooting at them, and then you have to board. So you have a hotkey for your cannon, you have a hotkey for the board. Can you target only one? Like, can I target only the cells, so I'm knocking on the cell bar so that I actually can board, or is it kind of with damage goes where it goes?
No, what you can do is if you open, when you have a ship, you can do this thing. Option to click open ship hotbars, and there's something called a targeting mode in there. And then within that targeting mode, you can focus. You can change this little ticker that changes your damage to hull, crew, sails, or guns. And you can so if you want to do crew damage, you can just focus crew damage. That's generally what you want to do in PvP. But for like sinking ship, for taking NPCs out, since you want to bring their guns and sails down, you might focus guns or sails right off the bat, get that bar down as quickly as possible. Then you can board and take out the enemy ship, or take out the enemy crew.
So the other question I had is, you have the kind of major reward with ship stuff is the doubloons. When does that ever factor in with purchasing of the ship, or is that only in the upgrades and the crew?
Basically, doubloons are spent in two ways currently. When I told you earlier that you should get a large to launch it to start off with, the only caveat to that is that you need 50,000 doubloons to launch a large. So when you buy a new ship, you can't just throw it in the water right away. You have to go to a dock master at any town, and you pay what's called a registration fee. And for a large, it's 50K. I think for a medium and small, there's no registration fee. So that's the benefit of buying a medium or small, is that you can essentially have no doubloons. So when you first start out, obviously you have no doubloons because you haven't done any seafaring yet. So that might be one reason to start with it. But people sell the doubloons or whatnot, but you'll need doubloons for registration fee. And then the other sink for doubloons is the houseboat. So all the houseboats you buy with doubloons. So the smallest houseboat is 1 million doubloons, which is quite a bit. I mean, you get doubloons quicker than you get gold generally when you're out on the sea, but that still takes a while to get 1 million doubloons.
So is that the only sink then? Is the houseboats?
Yeah, other than the registration fee and the houseboats, that's the only sink right now for doubloons.
Ah, interesting. I thought it was.
Well, there's one other too. When you have a ship, you can add upgrades to it. You can add the crew to it. When you hire the crew members, there is a small amount of doubloons you have to pay for that. So there's sort of maintenance costs, I suppose, of using your doubloons to add crew or to add upgrades to your ship. So there's that as well. But, that's kind of it. And a lot of people, and I agree with this, is that it'd be kind of neat if there was they should have a vendor where you could buy like a pirate flag or something you could put in your house with doubloons. There needs to be another sink for doubloons, I think.
Yeah, like something else you're driven to spend it with. So you have a sink to all that loot you're getting and make it a little more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I had a question of is, so you get the large ship, and then you're out there doing the PVM. Now, what happens when I run into a player? What's different in tactics there?
Yeah, so obviously, you got to be careful out there because you never know when some scallywag's going to roll up on you. But basically, if you're going to be seafaring, a couple things. You're going to want to have more than one character on you got to be ready to multi-client. Doing with just one client is just not a good idea. If you die, and you die sometimes out there, the enemy crews can hit quite hard, so you can easily die, or there's sort of buggy a little bit where you'll disconnect a little bit out on the sea, so you might lose a client or two. So it's good to have multiple clients. I highly recommend having tracking, especially on this server where you can have the active tracking and you can hunt grays. Everybody on the gray everyone on the sea is lawless, so they always show up as gray to you. So if you're hunting grays, that'll be a good forewarning to see if someone's coming into you. You'll get that arrow that pops up, the tracking hunt arrow. So that's important. But it's easier to escape than most people think, because it does take a while. Even if you're on a small ship, it still takes a while. First off, the small ships are very quick. So my galleon, for instance, does a shit ton of damage. It's got a ton of crew, but it's slow as hell. So if you're on a smaller ship, you're always going to be able to outrun me. So as long as you don't get boxed in somewhere, you should be able to escape in that way. If you're attacked by a ship of the same size or less size, a faster ship, your best course of action is generally to head towards land, and you can dock your ship even while you're sort of being fired at. So you can make it to land and dock and escape that way, and plenty of people have done that to us. It's not too hard to do. It's actually quite easier than most people realize.
Is that true? Even if like your ship is really upgraded because you spend a lot of time in the sea. But if I was out there and in a fresh boat, is that still the case? Am I still faster than the bigger boat?
Well, yeah, it depends. Like for instance, I have several ships. One of them is a large that I've equipped with a number of speed upgrades that are basically, like, there's one, for instance, called Hard to Port, which is you press it and it lasts about 20 seconds or something, but it gives you like a 30 or 40% speed boost for 30 seconds or something. So in that way, there is some times where even a bigger ship can outrun you, even if you're in a small ship. So yeah, the upgrades definitely are going to be a huge help to either defending your ship or attacking other ships. But generally, if you're in a small ship, you most of the time should be able to escape.
Yeah, it's hard to just explain how complicated the system is because your crew has stats, your crew has abilities. There's different kinds of crew. There's lots of different upgrades. Each upgrade does something different, and then you have different skills you can put on that all do different things. So you have a tremendous amount of customization with what you actually roll out into the sea and what you like do with your ship.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting thing because you can kind of make like our guild. A lot of our guys are into this, obviously. So we have a lot of different ships in our fleet. I think there's like 15 or 16 ships in our fleet right now, and you can kind of build them in different ways. So like that galleon we were just out on a little bit earlier today, that sort of fitted just for doing PVM because obviously it's a slow ship, so it's hard to catch players. But it's kitted out with all the damage bonuses you can do. Within your upgrade slots of any of the ships, you have different abilities. You have lesser, regular, and greater abilities that are usually, like for instance, there's one called Smoke Shot, which will it's a cannon shot that will do a certain amount of damage to the ships, but also then reduce that ship's ability or that other ship's cannon accuracy. So like that would help you shoot a ship, and then when they fire back, there's less chance they're going to hit you. There's all kinds of different upgrades. In other words, you can create all these different kind of builds. Like I have small ships that are kitted out with 100% speed bonuses that are just we use as a scout ship, for instance. And I have ships in between that are sort of damage / speed / other things. There's fishing upgrades. If you're into fishing, you can add all these different fishing upgrades that'll give you bonus chances to pull up special nets and all the rest of the fishing items. So there's kind of a lot of customization, a lot of builds, a lot of variability in there that you can kind of mess with. The crew, maybe not so much. I think they could do a little better on that because pretty much everyone is just stacking Orc Reavers because they're the toughest crew members. They do the most damage, and none of the other crew members really are going to offset that ability. Even if, for instance, a carpenter can increase your repair amount. But right now, even a master carpenter is giving you like 2 to 3% repair. So it's just not really worth it to do anything with that. Everyone's stacking Orc Reavers. So they can need to tweak that a little bit where they can make the crews a little more diverse. But with upgrades, you can definitely make all kinds of different builds out there.
Yeah, so it sounds like they have some work on the crew because if your main choice is the one decision, then your options are a lot less varied. It's just not an interesting mechanic if that's what it's boiled down to after weeks and months of playing with it. The upgrades though are neat. Do you have like an upgrade you recommend people go to for the cell, the cannon,
Frankly, they're rare enough now that if you get into seafaring, that whatever ones you get, you're going to want to put on. But there's definitely some that are more valuable than others, no doubt, and that'll be pretty obvious once you're out there. Like there's certain ones that'll do. There's just some that are kind of aren't going to do much for you. But for the most part, they're rare enough at this point where pretty much anyone you get, you're going to want to put on. But any of the damage ones are real valuable right now. You won't see a lot of people selling those because they're probably using them. But there's also aesthetic stuff too. Like there's a theme slot for your upgrades. So this is like there's various themes, like a pirate theme. And if you put that on your ship, there's like, when you launch your ship, you'll have like, corpses or barrels of weapons and all these sort of visual things that are kind of cool. There's obviously the paints for the ship, which is a cool thing. So you can I think there's 54 different paint colors that you can add to your ship. You can change the cannon color. So there's some aesthetic stuff, but everyone's sort of hoarding those damage abilities right now because those are the best.
But when you kill another player, do you get his upgrades?
No, you don't. You don't get anything from them, really. You do get, when you sink them, you do get a portion of the balloons, but it's quite small. There really isn't a lot of benefit to sinking someone, which I think is good, because if you got someone's upgrades when you sunk them, I mean, it's already pretty hardcore right now, where if you sink your boat, you lost it. If people lost if we were able to steal upgrades and we sunk ships right now, we'd be out there sinking everyone right now. Like, it would be too hardcore. That would be too much,
Yeah, okay. Good point. The other question I had was fishing. So I know fishing is a big part of UO. I have a buddy, he always told me about use the fish and do the message in the bottle. I know they've expanded it here in Outlands, and we've kind of been talking boats and PvP and the PVM side of it. But there's a lot of stuff with the fishing in Outlands. They have the nets and the special areas to go to. I feel like they have some visual cues for like fishing spots in Outlands.
Yeah, the fishing spots are what you can do is you have to sail them 9 times out of 10. They're always out in the middle of water, but you can take with those fishing spots, and they look like little coral reefs. So there's one that looks like a little rowboat or whatever. But you basically, from tailoring, you can create player made nets. And what you do is you sail up to these little fishing spots and you cast these nets on them. And you have a chance every time you throw that net on the fishing spot to spawn some mobs. And they're like, sea serpents and all kinds of different stuff. And so they obviously drop gold and doubloons. And they also have a chance of dropping a message in the bottle, which is sort of like a treasure map for the ocean where you plot it out, you sail to this spot, and then you sort of fish at that spot, and they'll pop up a bunch of mobs, and eventually you have a chance of pulling up a crate, which has, a bunch of loot in it. Although right now, a lot of people aren't too happy with that because it's a little underwhelming. Like, it's pretty hard to find the messages in the bottle, and there's not a lot of reward for doing it right now. So I think a lot of people aren't doing that currently because they're kind of waiting for it to be bumped a little bit before they waste all their mibs on it because they're quite rare.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing, that the content's there and it's cool, but the value for doing it is not the same as doing like a treasure map on land.
Definitely not. Yeah, they definitely need to make fishing should be a little bit more profitable here. It's not too great right now. You can also, if you're fishing from land, the only thing you can pull up is like crabs and all this kind of cooking shit, basically. But if you're on a boat and you fish, you have a chance of pulling up a special net, which is like, you've probably seen this before, but they look like the fishing nets you can craft, but they're like have really bright hues, like neon hues almost. And those fishing nets you can just cast out anywhere in the water, and you don't need fishing skill for these. And you can cast them out anywhere, and then they'll pop up a bunch of mobs that you can fight, basically.
Yeah, so how are you fighting these mobs that come up from either system? Are you using your boat? Or are you casting your spells from the boat? Or
you're not really using cannons, I mean, you probably could, but most of the time it's just you cast the nets out, or if you're casting on a fishing spot, they'll kind of pop up around your ship, and then you just fight them like you would any other mob. Obviously, your crew on your ship is a valuable resource for that because they'll automatically start fighting those things. And your crew's quite tanky. Like, they'll have, depending on what kind of crew you have, they could have 1,000 health, so they're pretty tanky, and they'll fight for you, essentially. But so if you're a fisherman, you definitely want to have some crew on your boat because you can pull up sea hags and some other things that are pretty nasty spawn, actually, it can go wrong quickly out there. So
can you heal your crew? Is there a build you like that keeps you alive and your crew, or can you not heal the crew?
No, you can heal the crew. There's you can just use a bandage on them like anything else if you have healing. In fact, if you're going to be getting in the seafaring, you absolutely 100% need to have a character with healing on it for getting your crew back healed up. There's actually, in your gump of your ship, there's something called open ship hotbar, as I mentioned earlier, but it pops up this little gump that has all your crew members' names on it. And there's couple little buttons on there that you can either click to heal them or to cure them. Or you can just, double click your bandage and target them manually. There's also a number of upgrades that do crew healing. I think one's called Rum Rations is one of them, I think, where basically it's an ability that you hit it and it might heal your crew up 50% or something automatically. There's a couple abilities to heal your crew up, but generally you're definitely going to want to have healing, just like if you're a tamer.
Yeah, I also, like, right before Outlands launched, they buffed begging just a little bit, and they actually gave you some PVM, or they boosted your crew if you had the begging skill. So are you usually having begging on your guys leveled up to get that bonus, or did it turn out not to be that worth it?
No, it's definitely worth it. Especially, like I said, you kind of want a multi-client. So normally when I'm out PVMing, I have 3 clients going. And one of them has begging on it. And when you hit a begging on your crew, I forget the message what it says, but it's like your crew is inspired or something. And it basically gives them a 25% if you're at 100 begging, it'll give you a 25% damage bonus for 5 minutes. And you can, as soon as that 5 minutes is up, you can do it again. So basically you can increase your crew damage by 25% nonstop with the skill of begging. You can also use begging to go to all the different taverns. If you go to any of the taverns in the map, you'll see like NPCs will spawn there that you can use begging on. And if your begging is high enough, you'll actually recruit them, and they'll pop up in your inventory as a little figurine, basically, that, you know, you've recruited that crew, and that's actually how you put them on your ship. You can also get those crew members from loot from the other ships, but if you're getting going, begging isn't too hard to raise. It's a little bit hard that you can only beg one NPC per day, so it's going to take you at least a couple days to get begging up, because you literally go around the whole freaking map and beg every NPC you see. But once you get that up, it's pretty easy to start stacking the crew up.
Okay. Are there any builds that you like a lot? I guess like if you were to build a character up to do boat content, what would you recommend?
Like I said, you kind of need multiple, but I mean, easy builds to. I mean, tamers do good. Tamers are always going to be good at everything in UO. So tamers are good. A little bit easier. You could go with like a summon mage with tracking would be a really good build.
Hey, that's what I'm macroing up right now.
Yeah, that'll work. That's perfect, because you have the tracking for looking for enemy players, and you can also track for, you know, aggressive characters, so you can find the enemy ships quite easily too. And then summoning works well. You can summon daemons, and they hit the crew. They'll tank a lot of the crew damage from the enemy ship, so that your own crew doesn't take as much damage. Because the big downtime right now for ship combat is healing your crew kind of back up after an engagement. So having demons is real, and then when you board, the demons will follow you on board, and you can send them on the enemy crew. So summoning is a real good skill to have. Tracking, obviously, healing, begging, all those. I mean, any of those builds you can kind of put together. I'm not a big fan of the archery. Is okay. Once you board, archery is good, because then you can just shoot the enemy crew, and you don't have to be right next to them, so you don't take any damage. I'm not a big fan of having swords, for instance, because that means you have to stand next to the crew and attack them, and the enemy crew hit hard as shit. So I try to stay away from that. You can also use, I think, fishing. Fishing is a little interesting here, where fishing kind of it works. There's a weapon called a harpoon, which is essentially governed by, it's like fencing, but it's fishing is the modifier for it. So if you have 100 fishing, you can throw a harpoon on, and they do pretty good damage.
Yeah, you'd be in melee though, right?
They actually, it's like you throw them. It's like throwing a spear.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. So it's a little disappointing to hear you have to have multiple characters, but I could probably do that if the second character is something you don't have to jack with very much. So like if I could just add,
yeah, you can definitely do that. Have your second character basically be a track bot. You know, put it on. He just is hidden, running, tracking over and over again, and maybe you use them to heal your crew after you've, you know, killed the enemy ship, for instance. You know, you don't have to have 3 characters, but I recommend at least having 2, because if you board and die, or somehow you die during the engagement and your boat's just sitting there next to an NPC ship, they're going to blast it down pretty quick, and you're going to lose your ship. So you want to have that second character that you can at least switch over to him and sail away or get away or whatever. You know, it's almost, there's a couple guys I think that go out there with one character, but they're really pressing their luck.
Yeah, so I could see having the second one as backup. He maybe has the begging, tracking. Is healing with Magery only decent, or would you really need the bandages?
I mean, you can heal with Magery, but they have so much health that it just, you're going to be wasting so much regs and mana. It's not really worth it, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this.
I mean, it's good in a pinch. If you're on, let's say you board and you're fighting an enemy crew, and sometimes the enemy captains do a lot of damage, so you do have to kind of heal your crew even when you're fighting. And if you need to, you can use Magery and heal them. That'll work. But bandaging is just so much quicker, and the timer is 5 seconds or 5.5 seconds or something. So you can just cycle. Like on my guy, I have a macro set up where I press it. It brings up a cursor. I target the guy I want to heal, and it'll just keep looping healing on that one guy, because generally the captain will stick on one of your NPC crewmates, and you can just heal that guy over and over again. but advantages are just obviously going to be a lot easier and a lot more cost effective.
Yeah, I just don't know that can fit healing and anatomy on a summoner build.
Yeah, I guess you could drop. You don't have to have anatomy, I suppose, but your heals won't do quite as much.
All right, very cool. So we have a couple questions from the community. Well, how about this? It's a lot of questions from one person in the community. Although some of mine did come from my guild, they were a little curious with how viable it was, like to go do the PVM out in the sea. I think we addressed that pretty well. So Steel Dish or Seshomaru, his first question was, how many people are actually sunk by Trin? There's a lot of negative propaganda making them look like ruthless villains. So I think, what's the name of your guild, Jack?
We're called Legends of Trinsic, but most people just know us by Trinsic because it's actually a guild that we've had for many years on a couple different servers. But yeah, Trinsic is our guild.
Yeah, and you're calling Cambria New Trinsic to keep
right.
The
well,
going.
Obviously in the map, Cambria's Cambria is Trinsic, on the old map essentially. So we're kind of our kind of RP of our guild is that we're sort of trying to take Cambria back from. If you look at the forums, there's sort of an RP section where there's a lore to the server, and Cambria has some leader that is on there. So our sort of RP is that we're sort of taking Cambria back and renaming it New Trinsic. So we've actually, a lot of people even started, it's funny, we'll go on Discord or we'll see people even saying, hey, I'll meet you in New Trinsic. Like they just started calling it just because we've sort of started it, which is quite funny.
Nice. So his question, how many people do you actually sink? If you kill 10 people in a night, how many of them do you sink?
Well, when we first started going, we were kind of we had a bit of the bloodlust at first, so we were sinking a lot of people right off the bat. But now, I mean, I never sink, like, there's a lot of people out there just on small ships doing fishing and stuff, and I will go out and kill them and board them and maybe RP with them a little bit, but I'm usually not going to sink those guys. And most of the time now, if we go and catch someone, we'll ransom their ship back to them and only sink them if they either are dicks about it or don't want to pay the ransom, essentially. So we're not out there just sinking everybody. That's really not happening. Although there's been a couple vocal people that weren't so happy with us that took that complaint to the forum or to the Discord rather, and maybe don't like us so much. But it is what it is.
Yeah, you can't appease everybody. So his next question: a privateer at sea, but a man of the good people of the land. Please explain how this is possible. Isn't a bad guy in the water a bad guy on land too? I was just going to add, you did mention that you're always gray in the sea. So I can kind of see mechanically how this works because you don't have to go red to be a pirate.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody's gray on sea. It's like sort of it's a lawless region essentially. So you won't take murder counts out by sinking players or attacking players on sea. But I think he's referring to like our guild, and we're allied with a few of the other RP guilds. One of them, Sir, you had on a couple weeks ago. But we kind of, Trinsic sort of started out this is like 6 or 7 years back. It sort of always had been a pirate type of guild, a privateering guild. And then what happened is we sort of created this, we're pirates, and then we sort of created this RP guild on the city that was sort of how we sort of laundered the money, was sort of the joke about it. So in other words, we're sort of anti-PKs most of the time, like on land, but when it comes to the sea, we go after everyone.
Yeah, the whole duality there, I guess. Any details on what it took to become such a force to reckon with on the waters? I remember episode 0, we had Phoenix on. I don't know how much he's playing these days. I haven't really seen him around just last couple of weeks, but he mentioned the dungeon, Inferno, I think, was actually, to get there at first, he thought you had to go in the water. I don't think he knew about the teleportations yet. But he was warning everybody, you go in the sea, I'm going to sink you. I'm going to own the sea. I don't know how much of a threat he actually put to that. But it sounds like you guys have kind of become the dominant force. So what did it take to get there?
Well, I mean, we've been doing this on different servers for a while, so we're kind of familiar with how sea combat works, even though this system's a little different. I mean, it's generally, we already had all the hotkeys, we know how to control boats. But a big part of it is just coordination. I mean, most people out there are just sort of out by themselves. You know, we kind of, our guild is sort of about that. We're about that life. So we're sort of, we'll go out there, we'll have 3 or 4 ships out together, you know, either hunting people, or maybe we'll just be out PVMing and we see someone and we'll kind of converge on them. And there just, frankly, right now is not a lot of guilds that are doing anything like that.
Yeah, you kind of need another guild to fight. Maybe it's doing like another version of you to go have some wars out there with.
Yeah, we're definitely open to that. That'd be fun.
Do you think simple fishermen fish women for the fun of it?
No, I've said this before, but I'm not a total ruthless asshole out there, so no, we won't sink a fisherman unless it's a guild we don't like. But other than that, we might kill them and board them and steal a couple of their fish or whatever. But you know, if someone's just out there fishing, we're not going to give them too hard of a time. And I've probably got 10 people that have paid, you know, sort of paid protection fees, that just fishermen. You know, they paid me $15K or something or whatever to sort of, so we can give them a break. And so we do kind of stuff like that, but we don't sink just anyone.
Yeah, that was his next question, was about protection and what it got you. I think you've kind of explained that pretty good. But what would merit you actually sinking someone's hard-earned ship? Obviously, they don't pay the ransom, but what other thing would they do, or you would outright kill them?
Well, I guess if it's a guild we don't like EQMS or one of these other guys, there's a couple guilds we're not too friends with. But I mean, generally, you know, if you're not a dick about it, we're not going to sink you. And I think there hasn't been, frankly, there probably hasn't been a lot of PvP out there. You don't see, most people are, your ship is so valuable right now, the way it's set up, that most people, when they see somebody else out there, they're not trying to fight them. They're just trying to run. We're one of the few people out there that are actually trying to engage in some PvP. But, I don't know. Like, we're trying to be cool about it, but there's a lot of PvP to be had. It's a lot of fun. I think they need to change the system a little bit to maybe make it where it's maybe not so unforgiving. I don't know exactly what form that comes in. But right now, not a lot of people want to engage in PvP because they don't want to lose their ship. And I've attacked galleons with a small ship, and they head for the fucking hills. They don't want to fight because they don't want to risk it.
Yeah, that was his next question. He was asking about like making them all blessed and going back to your bank, which how it might work on other servers. You know, me and you aren't designers. Obviously, Luthus is a pretty damn good one. I'm sure he has ideas. He's not really told us what revamp he's got planned for ship combat, but I would think it might include some kind of tweak there. And I'll be curious to see what they put in. Do you have any suggestions that you want to see them make to the ship content? You know, if you were to talk directly to Owen and Luthus, what you might say?
Well, as far as regarding like losing your ship and whatnot, somebody made a suggestion that I thought was pretty good, was some kind of ability where if your ship sinks, you can somehow salvage it. Like somebody with 120 fishing can go out there and like salvage your boat back up so you can get your ship back. And maybe you don't get all your upgrades back, or you lose, maybe the stats get, you know, diminished a little bit or something. Like there needs to be a penalty. If your ship just goes back in your bank and there's no loss whatsoever, in my mind, it takes the fun out of it. Like, even if you're on the receiving end of that, if there's no risk, there's no reward. It's like, you know, there has to be some penalty there to make it exciting. Otherwise, it's just like playing Call of Duty. You just die and respawn. Like, you don't care if you die because you just respawn. There has to be some penalty there, but maybe having you lose everything is a little bit harsh. So there is a balance there. I'm not sure what it is. I am confident that Luthus will figure something out, though.
I love the idea of having someone with a certain skill, the ability to go get it. That reminds me of EverQuest 1 and, you know, clerics and corpse runs and shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about, like, player-driven solutions are generally, I think, the best way to do it. So in a way, instead of just making your boat come back to your bank, make it so maybe someone with a fishing and carpentry or something has to go salvage your boat and repair it, or you'll have to, you know, contact someone or set up a deal so that you can get it back, or something in a way to involve other people, make it a little more in depth or something along those lines.
So beyond that, do you have any other big suggestions you have to kind of tweak the system or systems?
Yeah, I mean, a couple off the top of my head. I mean, the crew definitely needs to be revamped in a way, so that there's not just one meta of just having Orc Reavers. Maybe have diminishing returns where if you have 5 Orc Reavers, they start to do less damage or whatever. In some way to make the crew a little bit better. It'd kind of be cool if the crew, like right now when you put a crew on, they don't level up or anything. There's no mechanic for you to control them in any way. It'd be kind of cool if maybe you could level them up, or even if you could open their paper doll and change the way they look. That'd be kind of a cool thing. Like any different ways that you can kind of customize your own ship to make it your own, make it a little more cooler, like something more valuable, more to you. I think it'd be good. There's a lot of opportunities for. There's no reason there couldn't be some sort of sea boss, like there is in the dungeons. There could be some mega ship that you could summon, or just like the other bosses that spawns and you can go fight, or something along those lines. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do, I think.
Oh yeah, we need to fight a Kraken. That'd be awesome.
Right, a massive Kraken pops up and you have to fight it, and maybe it spawns other stuff too. There's a lot of stuff I think they could easily. I mean, Luthien seems like a pretty capable guy. So he's definitely could program something like that. And there's a lot of cool stuff on the map that seems to be sort of like a placeholder for the future. Like there's a number of these large kind of pirate ships that are just sort of out in the middle of the water that look like there should be some spawn on these ships or something, or there should be something to do here. So there's some stuff there they could definitely get to. I think that's going to come back to if they had a sea boss. Probably not a lot of people are going to do it because you can just lose your ship and that's gone. So they need to maybe figure out that dilemma first.
Yeah. What about like some kind of faction system too, tying the faction system with PvP events into the sea?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Like a capture point you hold or whatever, or some kind of sea point you can hold, or yeah, definitely. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, and that might be where you tie the blessed ship. Like if you do that, you don't lose your ship. So a way to get people fighting and doing the ship combat, but it's limited, so it's not quite the same as being out in the open water.
Yeah, maybe if there's an area where the sea boss is or whatever, that maybe if you get your ship sunk in there, maybe you don't lose it forever. That's actually, I like that idea.
All right, so last question from Steel Dish. He says, what type of wax do you use for your mustache to keep it in that pristine handlebar shape?
Well, earwax, obviously. I mean, it's readily available, so I'll go with that.
Nice. All right, man. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. There's just so much to this, to at least the sea and Outlands. I really appreciate coming on. You're kind of the expert, so I'm glad I got you on to talk all things sea.
Yeah, no problem. And I mean, if anyone listening to this wants to hit me up and ask me questions, that's cool. Or I'll take you out and we can sink some ships and you can kind of get an idea of what it's about. Because we would like to see more people out there. I mean, we're more PvP focused, so some people don't want to deal with that. But it is fun out there. You can make a good amount of money on the sea. You can make easily 20 to 30K an hour. That's just gold, straight gold, not counting doubloons, not counting all the loot you get and upgrades and all the rest. So there's a lot of people that are making money out there, and I don't think people realize that there's good money to be made out there.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to shout out, your guild or any kind of link you want to throw out there maybe?
I just say check the forums. The RP forums are good, and Legends of Trinsic, look at the forum Blood in the Water is a good one for ship combat. And if anyone's interested in getting involved, just let me know.
All right, yeah, I'll put those in the show notes. People can go find you out and check it out. It's a great thread. I read through the whole thing like twice the other day.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, that's it for today. So go to our website, insideoutlands.com. There I'll have the show notes, and we'll have all the links here from the cast today. We'll also have a link to our Discord. You can hop in there and talk to Jack there, or find him in the Outlands Discord. That's it for today. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Peace.